to be a part.
All right, everybody, welcome to the introduction to family opera costuming. Thank you for coming. It's a real honor to be here at the first ever PhantomCon. Ignore what's going on behind me. For those that don't know who we are, my name is Lindsay. I'm better known online as Fam on a Budget from PhantomOnABudget.com. And what I do is, thank you very much, appreciate that. I do a lot of low-budget family opera costumes and makeup for people that are just getting started out in their costuming. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on this. Jay, if I get a slide, please. This is the who we are slide. So I started costuming about 12 years ago, and it was just a quick Halloween costume for me because, amazingly enough, like if you take a plastic mask and you throw it on your face, you're instantly the family opera, and everybody knows who you are. Yeah. So that was kind of my inspiration. That's what I went with, and then I played with the makeup, and then it turned into this whole thing that you can now see that I'm all about it now. So PhantomOnABudget.com got launched in 2006, and again, it's kind of a go-to resource for anybody that's just starting out in their family costuming. So that's what I've done for the last 10 years has really been a POC for folks that need just ideas, where to start, where to look, how to do makeup, where to get their costume pieces, that kind of thing. And with me, I'm very honored to have Miss Darcy Kane.
So I'm Darcy with Viscountess Designs. I do costume design. I started around 2011 when I wanted to just make a costume, a Halloween costume, but I couldn't commission it from anyone because it was too expensive. So eventually I kind of moved off of that. I started doing fashion design. I started doing a whole Phantom, modern day Phantom inspired clothing line. I do accessory designs. You might know me from my Phantom bows, which are in the other room. And I also do commissioned costume replicas like what you see me wearing now.
Okay, slide. That's just a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to go into costume planning and why that is important. We're going to talk about the vision of the costume versus your budget and why those two never get along. We're going to talk about 3 different types of costume construction, very generic, but hopefully a little bit of information for you. And then finally some costuming tips, and then we're going to have a question and answer period at the end of the session. So just so we can keep things rolling, there's a lot of info. Just really request that you guys just wait until the end and we'll answer everybody's questions then if that's acceptable to everybody. Okay, slide. Alright, so costume planning. Why is it important? Bottom line, the more planning that you do, the better off you are in the long run because you're going to save time and money if you have a plan going forward. I've seen a lot of people come to me and ask me, hey, I want a Phantom costume, or I want a wishing dress, or I want a costume from a character from the story, and sometimes they come to me and they've already spent money on a costume materials. They don't know how to do the patterns correctly, and bottom line, they spent a lot of time and money on the costume already without really thinking it through. So if you sit down, slow down a little bit, take a couple days to really plan it, you're going to avoid wasting a lot of time and money into the project. And again, because a lot of times what happens if you don't plan and you end up running out and buying a bunch of materials, you end up scrapping the costume later because if it doesn't work, then it's a lot harder, to go through and tweak it so you get something that you really want. All right, slide.
So basically, your vision of the costume is what you want your finished product to look like. Oftentimes, you have to decide what you're basing it off of. If you want a family opera costume, do you want the Andrew Lloyd Webber version? Do you want the movie version? Do you want the UK production? Do you want the US production? All of these are different now. It oftentimes comes down to if you get reference pictures from like 5 different productions and you're trying to make it accurate to all of them at the same time, you're going to dig yourself into a really bad hole. The other thing is sometimes you can also just do original design. Not every Phantom costume necessarily is based off of the Phantom's tailcoat from the musical. Some people want to do the Lon Chaney version, some people want to base it off the Robert Englund version, or you might want to just make your own idea of the Phantom. This is your idea of LaRue. So what happens after that point is you start researching materials and you start sourcing those materials. You start figuring out where you're going to buy it and how much you're probably going to end up having to spend. And oftentimes you will need to know about costume construction methods because when it comes to making a Victorian outfit, you're going to need to know how to bone a bodice. All right, slide.
kind of my thing since it's in my name. Money unfortunately affects all the decisions that you're going to make with your costume endeavors. That would, it'd be nice to not have that be the case, but since it is, what you really need to be doing is be realistic and honest with your financial situation. So if you want a full replica, let's say dressing gown, because Darcy's got an incredible version on right now, and your budget is $50, you have to be realistic that you can't get a replica dressing gown like that for $50. So what you need to do is put a savings plan together, so that's very important, and be very specific. So it's a lot of fun to go through, and when you're putting a costume together, look at the materials, the trims, the patterns. That's the fun stuff. We like doing that. That's just a good time. The budget side of it, maybe not so much, because numbers and math and thinking, it's not as much fun. But again, in order to be successful, you really have to put the time and the effort into planning out your financial situation. Again, be honest with yourself. Don't get into a situation where you know the costume is going to cost you hundreds of dollars and you really don't have that kind of money to spend, because you don't want to end up frustrating yourself, and that can happen quite a lot if you're not very honest. So, and going into vision and budget and why in the wild, these two are arch nemesis, and they go like that quite a lot, right? They don't get along at all. So your vision and your budget directly affect one another. So if you want a costume that you're going to be happy with for a price that you can afford, you have to expect a compromise on each side. So, and that's because really the more fixed one is, the more flexible the other one has to be. Two examples. Let's say you want a replica wishing gown from the stage version of Phantom of the Opera from Andrew Lloyd Webber. Okay, you know exactly what you want in your vision. You want full replica. You want the materials from the source that the show uses. You want the trims from the same source. You want everything to be 100% accurate. So that means your vision is way up here. And if you're fixed and this is what you want and you're not going to compromise, that's fine. That's totally fine. However, it does mean that your budget has to come up to meet it. Okay? So, now if we reverse it, let's say you want to do a quick Phantom costume. It's Halloween, your first Phantom costume, you're just starting out, and you've got 30 days to put it together, and you have $75, and you can't get any more, so your budget's down here, right? It's fixed. So that means your vision has to come down from, hey, I want a movie-accurate costume with all the movie-accurate trimmings and materials and everything. You have to come down from off of that and say, okay, I'm going to go with a white shirt, some black pants, a mask, and maybe some makeup. And be okay with that, because again, the more fixed one is, the more flexible the other has to be. But if you're willing to compromise a little bit on each, say, okay, you don't, for the wishing gown, you don't use the stage-accurate fabric or the trims. You use something that looks a lot like it. Okay, or if you want to commission and hire somebody to make it, maybe that's a little bit out of your price range. Maybe you learn to make it yourself. Compromise. Likewise, on this side, you need to save a little more. So maybe push the project off a couple more months, get a savings plan together, and get the money that is going to be required to make the project that you really want. So that's pretty much that. Slide.
So DIY constructing. This is if you make the costume yourself. You're not commissioning anyone, and you're not going to like a thrift store to pick up the pieces. Fortunately, there's no labor cost in it because you are doing everything yourself and you're not paying yourself. It requires, unfortunately, a lot of research if you're not familiar with sewing to begin with. I was lucky in that I went to a fashion high school, so like the first 3 years they taught us from the very basics of how to make clothing. So from that, I was able to kind of extrapolate, okay, so this is how I would make a Victorian costume, this is how a bustle would go. And you need some sort of foundation in sewing to build costumes as complex as the ones in Phantom. Oftentimes, beginners will require additional time and materials because you're not going to jump into a Phantom costume, even a dressing gown, which is arguably the easiest one. But you're not going to jump into it and have it work out exactly the way you pictured it the first time. When I made my first Phantom costume, it was held together with Velcro, elastic, and like tape that was falling apart at the end of the day. It was not this that you see here. It was horrible. But it worked for the day because it was a last-minute project and it was on budget. Now, measure twice, cut once. I cannot tell you how important that is, okay? Once you cut into the fabric, it's over, all right? I've had many projects where I've had to scrap because I cut too excitedly. Right, it's like,
Don't cut excitedly.
don't do it. I have great scissors, that's the worst part. They're amazing. Okay, patterns. I get asked this question a lot, like, where do I get my patterns? How do I find patterns? The best recommendation I have is to source your patterns. Truly Victorian is a really well-known site for getting historical patterns. So you've got these corseted bodices, you've got bustles, you've got drapes, which are very prominent in the Phantom costumes. You can do probably Victorian tailcoats, although I think those have to be specially made. But what happens is you probably will need to alter this pattern that you buy online to fit what you want it to look like. Seams tend to need to get adjusted, the shape of the collar, little things if you really want your costume to be perfect and accurate to the stage show. If you're really adventurous, you can do make it yourself, which is draping on a 3D dress form, which you see here. And basically what you do is you kind of put the lines on the form and you start forming muslin fabric to it, and so you create a pattern that's exactly to the seams and the silhouette that you want. Slide.
Oh, okay, commissioning. So, commissioning is what you do when you hire somebody to make the costume for you. Quick bit of info, if you are looking to do costume contests, such as these large fantasy cons that have big masquerade balls and everything, you might run into some resistance if you have a commissioned costume, because most of those contests are actually open to people that make the costume themselves. So that's just kind of a disclaimer. I don't know if it's going to affect anybody, but I feel like we're going to have to. With commissioning, there's an additional labor cost. So these costumes will cost more than if you built it yourself. And it's very important to keep that in mind because, again, these costumers, like Darcy here, has a wealth of experience in phantom costume making. In general seamstressness, that's a word. Yeah, it is now. So, but these folks are incredibly talented, and there's a handful of them that I know in the phantom community that specialize, again, really just in phantom costumes. They do a lot of other stuff too, but that's their bread and butter. So if you want to hire one of those folks, do expect to pay a little bit more because they're getting that time and they're getting that experience and they're getting that attention to detail that I know I can't make this thing. This is what I hired somebody to make for me. I can't make a tailcoat or anything together. I tried making a pillow once and it really didn't go so well. So I just said, okay, no to sewing. I will hire people like Darcy to do it for me. So again, you can use phantom costumers. There are, again, a handful out there that are really, to me, world class. One of them is standing right here in front of you. Again, they know the design, they know the patterns, they know the reference material that they have to use to create that costume. So if you're looking for a replica costume, that is probably your best bet if you want something that's highly accurate because they know where to go. If they haven't done the costume already, they're going to find out where to get the reference material from. And again, the detail and accuracy is just top-notch for those folks, so it's a good deal. You can also hire a general costumer, which is somebody that doesn't have specific phantom experience. My first cape that I commissioned was from some company out in California, had no phantom costume, anything. So, and that's totally fine, but if you do hire somebody like that to do it, just expect that you're going to be not paying, but you're going to be doing more research on your own and providing them the material. So if you say, hey, I need a dressing gown, and Joe Schmo's costume shop is like, okay, that's great, I don't know what that looks like. You're going to have to go out and say, okay, well, here's some reference photos, here's some patterns that I know people use. You just have to provide them that so they can actually go forward and make your costume dream come true. Again, it's not an ideal solution if you're looking for something that's highly accurate, but again, if you're willing to spend the time, get the reference material together for them, then it's a better option. And I would suggest using somebody local if it's possible. If not, most costumers do work from a distance. So I know you work from a distance. Enchanted Suit Studio, who I hired to make the tail suit, we don't live anywhere near each other, so we ended up doing a bunch of different mock-ups of the tail suit and going through 3 or 4 different versions of it before we finally cut into the final material. So,
yeah, I was fortunate recently to have a client who was local, so she was able to come over to my shop for a couple of different fittings. And one great thing about doing local is she can tell you right on the spot, okay, I would like this 18 inch. You take it in an inch. She doesn't like it, take it out an inch. It's that easy. No, it's like 4 hours of sewing and seam ripping. It's not easy. But so from the commissionee's point, from the seamstress's point of view, oftentimes we want lots of we want lots of detail when you're trying to commission us. We want lots of specifics. You need to tell us, okay, I want it to look like this. I want you to use this material. I would like you to pay attention to this particular detail when you create my costume. Because sometimes the seamstress will look at the pictures that you give them. It's like, okay, this is how I see it done. And then you get it with either the train's too short or the bodice is too high. Sometimes things like that happen. But also you have to understand budget. Budget's really important. Time costs money. And the more training a seamstress has had with what they've been doing, the more their time costs because it's a learned trade. So if you go to someone and you want, let's keep using the full-scale wishing gown after it's in stage show as an example, if you want this done exactly with the correct underpinnings, to expect that to happen for less than $300 is probably unrealistic. So that tends to average when you want something like large scale. Yeah. Okay, slide.
Here's just some examples of pieces that have been commissioned. Two on the left, I believe, are yours. And then Enchanted Sea Studio did the Star Princess gown on the right. So they're all jewel-worthy. Cool. Okay, slide. Okay, you can't see it, but on the top it says scavenging. Scavenging is a term that I use. I don't think it's a general customer term, but basically what this means is that you're going out and you're buying and finding clothing pieces that you can incorporate into a costume. So you're not creating it from scratch, and you're not hiring somebody to make it. You're quite literally going down to the Salvation Army and you're picking up a shirt and being like, that was great. Costume. Pants, good, costume. No sewing required, so this is why I love it. When I started costuming again, because I don't sew, remember that pillow project didn't really work out so great? I had to find another way, so I did just start going around to like the Goodwills, the Salvation Armies, the local thrift stores. Sometimes local theater groups will do costume sales. Anywhere and everything that I think I could find something that looked like this, I bought it. And generally, if you're willing to think outside the box a little bit and look at some of the different areas, you can get some pretty decent looking options for not a lot of money. So it's a great option for those that are, trying to keep things on a budget. And that bears to kill me. Is it bad? Can we adjust that at all or no?
We tried.
Okay. Nobody's walked out of the room yet, so I'm assuming you're okay. The thing with scavenging though, if you're looking to do a female costume, especially something like from Phantom where most of it's all period, you're going to have a much harder time finding it. So it's a bad option for anybody that's looking to do like that wishing gown. You're not going to walk into a Salvation Army and see a wishing gown on the desk on the wall and be like, yes! I love it! I'll have it! So again, if you're doing any of the female costumes, it's probably not going to be a great option for you. Menswear is a lot easier because it's typically a little bit more generic. It takes a slightly skilled eye to pick out a Victorian tailcoat from the 1880s versus one that you might wear around today. So again, if you're keeping things on budget, menswear, this is a good option for you. Already went through a few of these sources. So thrift stores, Goodwill, Salvation Army, bridal stores, so those that want to do a, maybe like the wedding dress. Funny story, so when I was in college, we did a, stop laughing.
I remember that.
I pulled it down too. We did a final layer scene for a college production. There was just this class that I was doing, and my friend was like, well, I need a wedding dress. So we went to the local Goodwill, and there it was, just sitting there for like $10, and it had these super 80s, like, puffy shoulders, sequins all up and down the side. I mean, it was fabulous. Fabulous. But, again, that's a compromise that you have to make. Not highly accurate, so if you want something that's very accurate, scavenging's not really your bag. So, that's pretty much that. Online, eBay, if it's still an option for you, Craigslist, Facebook groups, just, type it in the search bar and go to town. So, slide. And here's just me in a bunch of different costumes that I scavenged. The one that I'm wearing right now is the one I commissioned. Up until this year, everything I've ever worn was just stuff that I found online or locally. So that's my Phantom costume there on the left, obviously. That's my bed costume, which almost nobody knows about. Just some old, some like little knickerbocker pants that I found online on eBay, an old antique vest, cute little wig, and I looked adorable. Really cute. And then Andre in the middle there, and then the Raoul costume, again, that's compromising. So if you're doing like a hussar costume from the masquerade, obviously that's a pretty specialized costume. This is just something that I found on eBay for like, I think it like My Chemical Romance and Black Parade. Go figure, and I'm like, well, yeah, I'm sure that looks fine. So that's
I think
that.
the mustache makes it.
I think the mustache makes it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Andre hair is the best though. Alright, so slide. Alright, so general costume advice, since we're wrapping this up, we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A, which is great. Don't be afraid to do something that's maybe a little bit different. So you're going to have mistakes, especially if you're doing something yourself for the first time. There's a learning curve. I make all my own wigs myself, so that's kind of the one hands-on thing that I do aside from makeup. Huge learning curve with making wigs. So again, you have to allow yourself to make a mistake and just learn from it and keep going. Own your vision. Dare to be different. So I love the stage version, I love recreating the stage version, and I do different versions too. But if you have an original design, own it. Go with it. I mean, there's no reason why you can't step out there with a totally new, original Phantom costume for one of the characters. That's awesome. So you don't have to do the thing that's popular. You can do whatever you like. You want to take any of these, or should I keep going?
Yeah, no, definitely don't be afraid, because if I continued being afraid of making costumes, I never would have gotten as far as I did today, because I told you Velcro and elastic. So everybody starts somewhere, and oftentimes that somewhere is just not really anything wearable past Halloween, and that's okay, because that is part of the learning process.
And just reiterating again, be realistic. I think that's the biggest thing I've seen over the last 10 or so years that I've been consulting with folks is that, you know, they have this big vision and they have no financials to support it. So if you have a fixed budget, please just own that too. The more at peace you are with that, the more enjoyable your costume experience is going to be. And again, just don't expect the perfect results. If you've never sewn, you're going to make a mistake. That's totally fine. Keep on rolling. And again, just don't expect to find specialty costumes such as an amenta dress or a dressing gown or anything that's highly accurate to the stage or the movie or any version that you're interested in just some random store. Because that's not going to happen either. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Everything else you want to add?
Not off the top of my head, although this one girl did find a real live wishing bodice in the theater department of her school. You know, just saying.
Yep.
Just one. Don't know what school that is.
It happens. So again, like theater, some theater groups.
Join the theater program at your school.
Theater groups. Woo! Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And also too, from a costuming standpoint, some of them will do sales from time to time and clean out their rack and refresh and get stuff in. And so just keep an eye out. You know, if you're a part of theater groups, put the word up that you're looking. And, you know, if they have a sale like that, just stop in because you never know what you're going to find.
But even if you found something that was only mildly similar, you can always fix it up yourself. Add lace, add trims, fix up the seams. You don't have to start from scratch necessarily.
Cool. Next slide. We've reached the end. So here comes the fun part. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't be shy. We've heard everything, so we'd like to hear it again. And we'll just keep doing this until they kick us out. And then, yep.
What costume would you feel is the most difficult to make, like out of the animals?
Out of the more commonly made ones, I would say definitely back to the wishing gown, because one of the most distinctive parts of that costume is that floral striped material, and you can't buy it as a normal person. You're not going to find it in some store, even if you go to just 30 stores, even in the garment district. So there's that, and the fact that it's expensive, it's imported, but also you have underpinnings. You have this waterfall drapery. You have this draped apron in the front. You've got pleats. You've got trims. It is not the costume I would recommend to anyone starting out for the first time ever, because it's a lot of different pieces that even I haven't tackled yet. I'm starting to work on it.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm shy, sorry.
You're good.
I'm shy too.
Do you like have a website and stuff? Like, where people come online and order stuff?
Well, you.
Oh, mine? Yeah, I do. The website was, I normally use my Facebook website because I haven't gotten a real website up yet. But it's facebook.com/Viscountess Designs. I also have a store envy, which I use mostly to sell rose. But all of that information is on my business card, which you can grab on the app.
And I'll plug off of that too because I want to feel involved. PhantomCon for anybody that's looking for more Phantom specific stuff, particularly like all the makeup tutorials and the wig tutorials and how you can obtain specifically a Phantom costume. So I have business cards with me and we're also next door in the next vendor room, so feel free to stop by and say hi. Hopefully that's not the last question.
Hi, Jeffrey. What is the best way to keep like wire on your Phantom mask? This one that I'm wearing right here, it's just like, together with super
Duct
cool
tape.
duct tape. And
Okay.
there's actually an interesting story. As well.
Yes.
I wore this mask at San Diego PhantomCon as well, and I was swimming crazy in this mask. And eventually it got to the point where it was only held together by duct tape at that point.
Yep.
Eventually the wire started to slip down of the duct tape. So
Yep.
I super glued it in, so now hopefully it'll stay now.
Super glue, hot glue. If you want to know how the real ones are done, this is done in the exact same fashion of the authentic stage mask. So what they do is they take piano wire, which is very difficult to bend, but they use it because it won't get distorted on stage when it's being thrown around. But what they do is they shape it very carefully and they hot glue it into the back of the mask. And you see it runs the length of the mask from all the way across and that helps give the mask more structure and support. So it's basically hot glue. And then what they do after that is put the leather lining in over that also with glue. So it's in there really well. And then we also sew it, 2 little holes. It's me, great. Okay.
Project.
I blame you.
Oh.
It's all your fault.
Yeah, it's my fault. It's
I'm
my
the first one that's happened to today.
Awesome. Great. So anyway, so hot glue basically is a great way to go. It's going to stay in there very well. Again, you are going to find that issue with tape if you use it because if you sweat a lot, it will eat away at the adhesive and it's going to start slipping all over the page. So I would definitely suggest gluing it in if you can. If you have a very thin wiring, I would suggest getting a heavier gauge because it would give you also this area.
What kind of piano wire is that?
Piano wire?
What's the best place to like find piano wire?
Music stores, basically, shops that are going to specialize in actually rehabbing pianos, restoring pianos. We have some there. Just give them a call and see if they have a supplier.
Right.
But again, it's very difficult to manipulate. So it's one of those things where you have to really want it pretty badly because you're going to curse for 3 hours trying to get that thing to take the shape off the mask.
But it's worth it.
I'm not speaking from experience or anything. So, yeah, but that's how it goes.
Right.
We're so adorable, you want to ask the camera.
How long did it take you to do that?
Both the dressing gown and the bodice underneath took probably 3 years. But it doesn't actually take that long to do. You can probably get it done if you continue work on it within 3 months. But it took me 3 years because I'm a perfectionist and I really wanted to find like the right trims. And what ended up happening was 2 years into this throwing it aside under a pile of fabric was I found the exact trim that was used in Sierra Baucus's one from the 25th anniversary. So I was really excited about that. But basically, roughly 3 months on this because it is one of the smaller costumes. It's basically just a silk base. Once you get it to have a shape, the most work that goes into it is kind of cutting all the ruffles from burnout satin and then putting that together. So it's very repetitive work. This is all like straight lines and then gathering and then handwork when it comes to everything else. So yeah, not the most labor intensive out of all the costumes in the show. I almost never finished it. The convention was the one that kickstarted me back. I was like, oh wait, I shouldn't just come on here in like a t-shirt and jeans. I should actually show that I know what I'm talking about.
So she finished it for you guys.
All three.
So, are you, like tomorrow, are you gonna show how you do any of the makeup? Or-
I have a makeup workshop after this at 3 something today. I'm not actually going to show it, but I'm going to go through different materials, things that you can do to make this. So if anybody's interested in how to do makeup for Phantom, please come and see me later. It's at 3 o'clock, 3:40, something like that. So I'm going to take you through everything you need to know about doing Phantom makeup on a budget. And wigs. A little bit on wigs. But I can talk about it now if you want. Everybody else wants to. How much time do we have? 5 minutes.
Yeah, good, fast.
Anybody have a question in 5
Quick
minutes?
rundown.
Basically, this is just liquid latex that I made a mold of. So these sculpts are all completely original for me. Again, you can see it's very heavily influenced by the original London makeup. That's just what I like. So I made my own mold, sculpted it all, and then you just put liquid latex in it, cotton to help create more of a 3D effect, more liquid latex over that instead of cotton in, and then you just let that dry, you powder it, you take it out, and you glue it down. And it's just a matter of really making sure the edges blend in well to your skin, getting the coloring all right and done, and these guys had to like listen to me cursing the whole thing because I always get myself into a time crunch and I'm like, I just gotta finish.
Oh, you should have seen me with the needle trying to finish this stupid bodice.
Yeah, there's just a lot of chaos going on today, but basically, so that's it. And there's a lot of other options that you can do for low budget makeup, both for like a theater production or just a Halloween costume for yourself. So it's very cool. There's gelatin, there's transfers, which we're going to talk about later, we'll go into all that. So if you're the least bit curious, please come out, make you feel good.
She really knows her stuff when it comes to makeup.
Hopefully, because I should look like an old ugly dude.
Just look a little suntanned.
I'm actually a cute blonde in real life, but so, okay. Well, if nobody has any other questions, we'll be around all weekend. So we're doing this again tomorrow, kind of like an abbreviated version for people to come on Sunday. But please, like, come up to us and for picture requests or talk about costumes or.
And if you're shy to ask your question in front of everyone,
All right, so thank you everybody.